your your address to the conference
Yes.
is a perfect way to describe the beginning of the Whole Grains Council. I mean, there was the San Diego meeting that we were so lucky that you came to that.
Well, and I did read my speech again. I actually had my wife read it. That's when I was in Toastmasters. And, so I had some experience of doing that, but not in front of an audience like this, like the meeting, the conference in New Orleans. But it was fun. It made me remember a bunch of stuff. It helped me. And then I also looked at the list of attendees we had. That was priceless.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there we were at the Dell.
At the Dell. Yeah. I was trying to remember who told me about the meeting, and maybe it was somebody from Oldways cold called me. I just cannot
It could
remember.
have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was pre-Cindy days
It was. Yes. Yeah.
because she didn't join us until after the 10th anniversary conference.
Right.
She
Right.
came for dinner on Monday night. I saw her. She said
Oh,
to
she
say
did.
hello. Yes.
Oh, that's great. You know what I remember, vividly was obviously done up there speaking, and I thought, this guy's a great guy. I want to be his friend.
Oh.
And I told him after, I said, Dunn, you can make a large room feel small. I felt like he was talking directly to me, and he's got that, Dunn had that warmth, and that sense of humor that I said, and then meeting you, I said, I want to be friends with these people.
Well, we're very lucky that you did.
It was it was a lot of fun, and I remember
You poured grano on his head.
that was a shameless way to get attention to my product, and
Well,
I
it
wanted to
worked. Plus,
I wanted to make
it made a big point.
well I wanted to make Dunn remember me, so I think he did, obviously, but and we talked after that, and immediately again because of you and Dunn and your entire Old Ways crew, I just wanted to get to know you guys, and that was the impetus for me going to the 10th anniversary of the Mediterranean diet because I wanted to hang out with you guys again.
And we did,
Yeah, we did.
along
Um,
with Jeff Dahlberg and Ray Lodano and Len Marquardt, I think, too.
and Len was there as well, and I remember standing in the back of the room and kind of and there was this, the Atkins diet thing was
Right.
in full bloom, and then the no carb craze was ongoing. And I looked at these guys, I go, guys, we got to fight this. This is wrong. And having some great scientists there,
Right.
um, side by side was pretty helpful. Um, and I remember going up to Dunn after, and all of us, we were upset. We were angry that the low carb craze was gaining so much notoriety, and that carbs were considered bad. All carbs were lumped together,
I know.
and that's how we.
Unbelievable.
So a little bit of anger helped us start the whole Grains Council, and then a little bit of wine because we that night we all sat at the same table and had a salute to whole grains, and I think that was the time Dunn came up with the name of the council at that time too. Pretty sure he did.
I
And I
think
do remember him looking around the table and said, "Okay, who's going to be our first leader?" And he kept looking at me. I'm going, "Oh no, I can't do this. I can't do this." And I realized I couldn't say no to Dunn. So that's how I signed up, and it was a fun ride. We worked so hard, and long hours and had fun along the way, of course. But we put a lot of time in. I was looking at my notes and memos and all that. Wow, it was a big part of all of our lives
It
for
was.
many years. But I think the reason why is we felt a need, an urgency to help people, and they were getting bad information about carbohydrates,
Really bad information.
right? Yeah, and we needed to counter that. But I remember we also wanted to do it in a positive way. There
Right.
was so
Rather
much,
than bashing.
right, right. Sarah, there was so much. This part of a food is bad. This is bad. This is bad. We said no. Let's promote the positive message of whole grains.
Right.
And
It was positive about whole grains, but not bashing refined grains.
exactly, we never did that. That was our mantra, not to do that. Um, I remember also because of the influence that Oldways had and the amount of scientific, geniuses that were there, that we thought that the Whole Grains Council could be the conduit between the consumer, the scientist, and food industry. And that became our charge
Right.
is to be that conduit. Again, with helping the consumer to
Right. Do you remember how we figured out that they didn't know what a whole grain was and that there was a reason that there was a need for the stamp?
yes, and I was thinking about that. I can't remember
I can't either.
except I think we said something like there's a lot of messaging on packaging, and there was nothing about the whole grain content, of course, back then. And I remember we just wanted to make it easy for someone so they didn't have to go and read all the label and try to figure out the percentage and figure out all that. We wanted them to see that and to be confident and trust. That was a big part of it, to
Right.
trust the symbol we came up, which eventually became the stamp. And I remember thinking, we need to provide something to the members. Let's provide something tangible. And something came back to me from my youth, the good housekeeping symbol.
Right. That's it. That was it.
Remember, we talked about
That
that?
was it.
Yeah. And it kept floating around in my mind, thinking, boy, people trust that. If we had something that people would trust, and we also provided good information, that would be something that would help, again, help that. I always thought of that busy mother with a couple of kids in
Ah.
the grocery cart, and not having time to read all the labels, but to see the stamp and say, oh, that's good for my family.
And I trust it.
Yeah.
Because you remember that there was a lot of, bread was, they put coloring in it to make it look like it was healthy. But there,
Yes.
it's interesting. Walter Willett wrote me about a month ago, and
Mm.
his wife Gail had come home from a very prominent grocery store with a loaf of bread that had whole grains on sort of the marketing label.
Uh-huh.
And there wasn't a stitch, not even a grain of whole grain in this. And he said, how can they do this? They also had the word honesty on the package. And he said,
Oh,
it's far from honest. There are no whole grains. And you really do need that stamp. And this is 20 years later.
yeah. Amazing.
Somebody knows that the words whole grain are a selling point. I mean,
Mhm.
we were finding that it was a competitive disadvantage not to have the stamp.
Right. Right. It it really turned out much better than I think any of us in those early days thought. right? How little we knew back then, but we were zealots in a way,
Right.
but
Wanting
we
to make a difference.
yeah, but by the same token, I remember the conversation saying if people aren't eating any whole grains, then we need to get them to eat some whole grains.
Hmm.
In other words, we weren't saying people overnight you can only eat all whole grains. That wasn't our messaging because we thought we'd just lose people. So we
Right.
thought let's bring them along the path and give them an entry point. So maybe a product had some whole grains in it. That's okay. But over time,
Right.
that would grow and their desire for more whole grains would grow. And I think we accomplished that.
I think we did too. And if you think of the titles of the conferences, there was Make Half Your Grains Whole, and then Whole Grains Go Mainstream, which was one of our goals, was to have whole grains be mainstream like olive oil was becoming,
Yes.
and to
Uh,
get on Oprah, which is one of your goals.
which that was, I'm glad you brought that up. We actually did. Do you remember? We
Yes,
actually got on Oprah and I was shocked. But I thought that was pretty funny. Like, really? We did?
really.
One of the taglines we used was whole grains at every meal, and
Right.
I remember that just hit me as something I need to incorporate. And to this day, I try to get a whole grain at every meal. It's not always possible,
Mm.
um, and sometimes it embarrasses my wife at a restaurant when I purposely ask, do you have you know, a product with whole grains in it? Are your rolls maybe whole grain? Do you have brown rice?
Pasta.
And it kind of embarrasses her because we knew they didn't, but I do compliment restaurants and waiters and tell them thanks to the chef for using, if there are whole grains on the menu, thanks to the chef for doing that. And I think that was one of the things we talked about. Just ask for whole grains.
That's it. Just ask.
Right, right. And that was, if we all started doing that, that they'd get the message. And I think they have.
I think so too. I think it's very much mainstream. Maybe
Yes.
not all the pasta is whole grain, but some of it is.
Yeah, some of it is. And I only eat whole grain pasta now. I just it's my way of doing
And
it.
Sarah likes it too.
Yeah, sometimes.
Don't they?
Actually, she does. It's the only pasta she will eat. She doesn't eat a lot of pasta, but whole grain pasta is the only pasta. And I think she's surprised sometimes that, boy, that tastes good. And okay, great. It's
And then
funny.
of course bulgur.
And bulgur. Obviously being a bulgur wheat manufacturer, I was concerned that we just get lost in the shuffle. And I remember talking about that, and we wanted to have an easily recognizable list of what were whole grains. In a lot of our literature that was put out by your very able team and Cynthia's unbelievably hard work. Uh,
Isn't she incredible?
I was blown away, obviously, Dunn, by you being an amazing organizer and your positivity when I questioned you and I said,
Can we do this? Of
yeah, yeah, right. How many times did I do that? And you always came back, absolutely. Yes.
course.
So, and that was great. And then Cynthia working her butt off so many hours for the Whole Grains Council. That was just, and it was fun. It was great communication that helped a lot. Obviously, you're in Boston, I'm in California,
Right.
and we just communicated like we had known each other forever. And and
It
and we
does.
didn't
It feels like that.
we didn't worry about hurting someone's feelings. We said what we thought was right, and we did it in a thoughtful manner. but it was like we'd known each other forever. It felt comfortable. So
I agree. I definitely agree.
cheers to you for making that happen the way you did. Thank you.
And we would be nowhere without you.
Well, it was the right time. I was at the right time, the right place, and
Do you remember that meeting at IFT in Chicago?
yes,
We had it's a little meeting room in whatever hotel is attached to the convention center.
yes. And I remember looking at you, and it was a pretty good sized room, and thinking, is anybody going to show up? And of course, you said yes. And I was still like a little leery. And then people showed up.
Yeah,
And and what I was amazed at then were the large companies and small companies
right.
showed up and some big names. And I thought, well, we talked about it. We thought, what a great way for large companies and small companies to kind of work together for a common good. Um, so that was really neat. I remember that vividly. Um, that conference, and
I can still see that conference room.
yeah, yeah.
I had to go find whole grain crackers. They weren't so easily found
Yes,
in
yes,
2003.
yes. You did that. I remember that too. That's great because we had to have whole grain
Yeah, we did.
choices there. And that was the other thing that Oldways did so well. That was uh, so perfectly timed with the important things at the conference of science were the foods, and that were either at meals. So we had a lot of whole grains at meals,
We did.
and we had opportunity for companies to show their whole grain products. That was a nice way to do it and to introduce people um, to whole grains.
Right.
And you guys have been doing that for a long time. Oldways had done that for a long time. And to this day, Sarah, we could not have done this without Oldways. You had an amazing organization in place, and it melded so well with the message, the Mediterranean diet, right?
Right.
It had whole grains in it. It was just the perfect joining of forces.
Thank you. I agree. You know, the Mediterranean diet pyramid, the all the plant foods together at the bottom, the base of the foundation of the pyramid, the guidance is just as you talked about before, is base every meal on these foods. And
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
where you start rather than the top down. It's from the bottom up.
From the bottom up. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I remember the hours we spent over the stamp and going back and forth. Remember that? And and then I think it was Cynthia came into a meeting and said, "Well, what about this?" And it was the idea for a stamp. And it was like all of like the light bulb turned on. All
Yeah.
of us, I think, said, "Well, of course, that's a great idea." Um, so I think she had some designer she was working with,
It was
and
a lady in Maine. We live
oh
in coastal New Hampshire, Cynthia and I do. And um, she had a, not surprised, she had a connection through a Mac users group of a
oh
designer in coastal Maine, not too far from Portsmouth, where she lived.
wow
Her name was Sue.
oh
And Sue was a person that designed, not from a big fancy design firm or anything, but a freelancer working at home.
wow
It's wrecking, and
that
when I tell people, that little black and gold stamp. Oh, yes, yes, I know that, that they may not know where it comes from, but they know the stamp and they know what it means.
they do, and it's trustworthy, as we talked about earlier. A stamp is very trustworthy, so
And
that's
and because it is not prescriptive, it's just descriptive. The Food
hmm,
and Drug Administration um, approves of it because we're not saying you're going to be healthier or safer or better, but that nutrition guidance is eat this many whole grains per day, and this product will give you X number of grams per serving.
Exactly. I remember we were challenged by how to do that correctly and came up with the way to do it that was acceptable to obviously the government.
Which we
Yeah,
had to be.
yeah. I do remember something after almost every meeting. I'd look at Dunn, he'd look at me, and he'd say, "I think we did good work." And I loved that line. Of course, fondly remember him, but I'll never forget him saying that in a very humble way. It's not like, "Hey, we kicked butt or did it." I think we did good work, and that was very nice of him. And well, I will always remember him for that and for his great humor and for his leadership.
Well, he loved you.
It was fun.
You know, I sit in his office when I go to the office now, and we have on the wall something that you gave Don as a present. So it's you're there
Yes,
in his my office,
yes. No, that's neat.
and
That's neat.
and I know we couldn't have done it without you and without your charisma and leadership and
Mm,
um, nerve pouring Grano all over him and making us a crown, which, you know, even though we shrunk our office by half since half of our staff no longer lives anywhere near Boston,
yeah,
we just learned in COVID we didn't need to hire people who lived in Boston.
right.
We did not throw the crown away.
No, you still have the
We
crown.
have the crown. We
Oh,
display it.
I remember having my assistant work on that. I think she had her son help glue the little grains on it.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly what. Oh, that's so funny.
She's a really nice lady. I remember her.
Yeah, that was Maria.
Maria.
That was way back. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was those days. Yeah. Um, Sarah, in looking over the whole landscape of what we did, I'm, I guess, and pride is not a word I use a lot, but I'm proud of the fact that we formed this amazing team and we set goals, we achieved our goals,
We did.
and we did it in a fun way. And that kept the fire going, the fun of the group and the team. And I will be forever proud of the teamwork and all the chairmen and all the members that came after those early days have contributed to this thing called the Whole Grains Council that is much bigger than any of us ever thought in the beginning. Now, maybe you did, maybe because you're so positive, you thought it would get this big, but certainly it is something that I still smile when I see the stamp on a package.
Yeah.
So,
You know, Dunn's grandchildren look at it and say, "There's Grandpa."
oh, they do.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. No, so
They're
sweet.
getting to be adults, all of them now.
Are they? Yeah, well,
They
I know.
are. Yeah,
Wow. So you still stay in touch with them and
I do. I do.
good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And some of his brothers. So
okay. Okay, good.
absolutely.
Good. Um, did we answer all the, did we go through
We
everything we
we
needed
have
to?
we have done everything.
See, you made it so easy. It was
It,
just like a
it
conversation. Just
it's a conversation. I just sent some questions just to get
yeah, that was
percolating.
good. No, I'm glad you did, Sarah. It's so
It's
good to see you.
heavenly to see you and give my love to Sarah and Luca.
I will do that. Thank you. All right. Well, hey,
Thank
great to
you.
talk to you. Great to see you.
Great to
Let's
see you
definitely
and
get
talk to
together
you.
when we're on the same coast and appreciate you so much. I really do. And thank you
I
for
appreciate all that you did to make it happen.
it's fun. It's a fun ride with
It
fun
was.
people.
Goodbye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.